When most people hear the word brand, they think of logos, taglines, or a color palette. Those are expressions of a brand, but they are not the brand itself. A brand is something far deeper and far more powerful. It's a constellation of meaning that forms in the minds of customers, employees, partners, and investors. It's the integrated perception of how an organization looks, what it says, and how it behaves. In this session, we'll shift from the surface level to the structural level. We'll explore how brands actually live in the brain, how networks of associations form, strengthen, and ultimately shape choice. We'll look at why consistent and intentional brand management drives growth, loyalty, and valuation, and why misalignment inside a company can quietly erode all of that value. You'll also learn to see your own brand through a new lens, a constellation built across 8 dimensions: product, placement, pricing, promotion, category, competitors, company, and customers. These aren't isolated activities. They're connected signals that tell the market who you are and why you matter. When they align, they create clarity, and when they diverge, they create confusion. This is the foundation for understanding what a brand truly is and how leaders shape it with intention. Strong brands don't just look better, they perform better. Study after study has shown this. McKinsey found that powerful brands create customers who are more loyal, more forgiving of missteps, and more willing to advocate for the brand. The top companies have higher return on invested capital and command premium prices in the market and have greater resilience. Kantar's search research amplifies this picture, showing that a brand accounts for a significant share of total business value and drives superior returns over time. This is a brand multiplier. When it's strong, every dollar spent on marketing works harder, messages land more clearly, and customers return more often. Employees sell with more confidence, and investors recognize the stability and clarity that strong brands signal in competitive markets. This is not theoretical. These impacts show up in revenue, growth, margin, and expansion, and a long-term valuation. Brand is one of the most under-leveraged strategic assets many companies have, and top-performing organizations treat it as a CEO-level priority. Because when a brand is aligned, intentional, and consistent, it reduces the cost of growth and increases the efficiency of every initiative. Everything begins to work together instead of pulling apart, and that is where strong brands create real business momentum. There's a common misconception that brand lives inside the marketing department, but brand is shaped far beyond marketing. It's built or weakened by every function, every team, and every decision inside the company. When there isn't a clear, defined brand that is aligned, initiatives slow down or drift. Different teams start creating their own versions of the truth. Marketing struggles to create messages consistently. Sales loses momentum, and founders often find themselves rewriting the pitch deck week after week because nothing feels quite right. This happens because the brand is fundamentally about how the entire organization behaves, not just how it advertises. A bold campaign can create excitement, but if the product doesn't deliver, or the pricing feels unfair, or customer service falls short, the brand takes a hit. The signals sent to investors are shaped by this same alignment or misalignment. That's why one department cannot own the brand on its own. Leadership must define what the brand stands for, and every team must help deliver on that promise. Marketing plays a critical role, but it cannot carry the responsibility alone. In today's environment, consistency is essential. Every interaction, every message, and every touch point contributes to the meaning customers form. When the organization owns the brand together, it creates a coherence and trust, and that trust fuels performance. Ask a group of marketers to define a brand, and you'll likely get as many answers as there are people in the room. That happens because there's no shared definition. Without clarity on what a brand actually is, it becomes difficult to know what you're managing, how you're shaping it, or how to guide it over time. The work becomes subjective, inconsistent, and often reactive. This session shifts that dynamic. Today's goal is to create a clear, grounded definition of a brand, one rooted in how meaning forms in the mind and how customers experience an organization. When the definition becomes clear, the path to managing it becomes clear as well. We move from seeing brands as surface level outputs to understanding them as systems of meaning shaped by product decisions, by the product category you compete in, by your customers, and by the organization behind the scenes. Once the underlying structure is visible, everything else, the choices you make, the signals you send, the story you create, begins to align. That clarity is what allows teams and leaders to manage the brand intentionally rather than by accident. And that's where transformation begins. Here is a brand, and I want you to think about. Pay attention to the ideas and feelings that come to mind when you think of this. Think for a moment about the associations that come to mind when you think of Coca-Cola. The taste, the red and white colors, the bottle shape, the places you find it, the moments when people enjoy it. What's remarkable is that millions of people around the world think of many of the same things. Across generations and geographies, the meaning of Coke is strikingly consistent, and that consistency didn't happen by chance. Coca-Cola intentionally created that meaning, and that lives in the market's mind. For more than 130 years, the brand has repeatedly shown people what it wants them to know and remember. The product, the imagery, the language, and the experiences have all reinforced one another over time. This is why people can describe the brand so fluently and so similarly. The question behind this slide is simple. How did they do that? How did Coca-Cola build meaning so deeply and so consistently across so many audiences for so long? The answer lies in understanding how the brain forms associations, how individual signals become connected, how patterns become familiar, and how meaning takes shape. This example sets the stage for exploring how brands build networks of meaning intentionally, the same way Coca-Cola has done for more than a century. Coca-Cola is one of the strongest examples of how meaning is built through long-term consistency. Over more than a century, the brand has repeated the same core signals over time, and so often that they now share a common language. The bottle shape is instantly recognizable, no matter where you are. That silhouette has appeared in countless ads, in stores, in homes, and in cultural moments, stretching back generations. The brand consistently presented scenes of consumption, families sharing Coke in the 1950s, lifestyle moments in later decades, and partnerships like this one with Barbie that connected the brand to both tradition and emerging culture. The language has been steady. Even in early signage paired the word drink with Coca-Cola, creating a simple behavioral cue that still appears today. Visual icons like the polar bears reinforce the color system and emotional tone, evolving over time yet staying unmistakably part of the Coca-Cola universe. Across all these touch points, the pattern is clear: repetition with purpose. Coca-Cola used the same themes, shapes, and colors and words again and again over a century of time, making them familiar, expected, and meaningful. This is how people across generations come to share the same mental image of a brand. Consistency creates fluency, and fluency becomes meaning. What we see here is not just history, it's a blueprint for how brand meaning is intentionally constructed. Coca-Cola has done something remarkable. It has purchased space in your brain, not in a literal sense, but over time created meaning of a mental object that sits in memory, ready to be recalled instantly. That object includes not just the product, but the entire language you use to describe it. The taste, the colors, the emotions, the experiences, and the stories. Because the brand lives in the mind, it's important to understand how that mental object is formed. Every association we hold, every visual cue, every message, every experience becomes part of a network. When those associations repeat consistently, they bind together into a single, recognizable whole. That whole is what we call the brand. This slide marks a shift in the discussion. It moves us from observing what Coca-Cola has accomplished to understanding how it was accomplished. If we don't understand how the mind forms a brand, we can't intentionally create one. By recognizing that brands are mental objects built from associations, we open the door to managing them with clarity. And that clarity is what allows organizations to shape the meaning they want to hold.